I want to introduce Devora with our press flower presentation.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. Well, thank you, Michelle, and Kurt, thanks for reaching out. It's really lovely to be here, and I'm honored to be here. And I just want you to know that I have a great passion for flowers and other botanical engineering. And I have for over 40 years been growing flowers, pressing flowers, making things out of pressed flowers. And it's just brought great joy in my life, especially in the cold winters of Maine when the snow is everywhere, to pull out my press and open it up and see these flowers and work with them has been a total joy. So I'm just here to share that joy with you. There are many ways of pressing flowers. It's pretty much what I do. I of course plant them, grow them, have them in my house. But pressing has been my mode of preserving that. And I gave you a little handout that I just think is kind of interesting. It's the history of pressing flowers for art. And I think the reason it appealed to me was because it was not long, even though it's 5 pages, print is big. And it has some interesting pictures. And it really talks about our flower use throughout our history and practically before. So people started using flowers in various sites. We know 3,000 years ago, they appreciated the deep meaning of flowers and used them to honor people of one another. Then you bring it fast forward, and it's just been ongoing. It kind of became real art in Japan. They call it Oshibana. And then it traveled from Japan to the US, and women have used pressed flowers for a very long time to help treasure memories, to perhaps make something out of them to prolong their life. And they will last a very long time. It's really surprising. And what I really liked in this article was what I think it's what I'm going to consider myself now to be, and that is a botanical preservationist. It's a noun scientific. It is an art, and it's been considered an art form for forever in our history. I remember going to Campobello Island, which is where the Roosevelts summered, and going through the Roosevelt cottage, and there on the wall were these 2 beautifully framed flower arrangements, pressed flower arrangements, and still there, still looking beautiful, as we all look, even though they were a little aged. And it's just been around for a long time. So I've done various things. I had a business for a while, but what I really like to do is just to make things and give them away. It's just, for me, it's just a joy to give something that I've made away, and that someone else will, I hope, enjoy as well. So today, I don't want to take too long with the run up to this, but I want you all to be able to have time to make something. So, you can make a card and a bookmark. I've brought all sorts of flowers that are all pressed, and so we'll get to that as soon as we can, because that's the fun part. But it's also fun to press, and there are many ways to press. I have my tried and true, for me, method, and that is pretty traditional. Nowadays, people use microwaves, and they use dehydrators, and I'm sure there are other things to use as well. A friend of mine has an old book press, with the wheel thing on top to tighten and press it down. I just stand on my presses once they're full, and I press them with my weight. But there's all sorts of ways. I'm going to show you the way I do it, and the way that's worked for me. the very best over the course of my 40-something years. Some of my methodologies for making things have kind of evolved over time, but it's just so much fun to make things that you will enjoy it, and I hope you get to the point where you will do it. So I recommend,
I just want to say that, when Agri Garden Club now has a, freaking, show for Thompson Park. Oh, wonderful. You might not know who you are. Well,
yeah, I think, the Japanese thought it was an art, and a lot of people are making art. In fact, if you go on Facebook, if you do Facebook, or you could even Google press flowers, and you're going to find many sites that talk about how to press, and many people are showing their artwork on Facebook now. And it's amazing what people do. I mean, I love it because I maybe can be a traditionalist where, you make an arrangement, but there's so much creativity going on out there. So the sky's the limit. You don't have to be limited by making, a little arrangement of some kind unless it suits you. Some people just scatter the flowers all over a page and they look beautiful. Because the truth is the flowers and the botanical materials are beautiful. So I use a press that I made. I have many of them. This is one that I've made recently. And it has these brackets to compress it. A little redundant on my green sheet of notes, or blue sheet of notes, but these are just pieces of plywood. And oftentimes if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, you could buy a quarter sheet of plywood. You don't have to buy a whole sheet of plywood. And you could say, could you just please cut this in 12-inch squares for me? And you have your frame. This one happens to have a coating on it, but actually I recommend leaving it unfinished. Now you could, and many people do, simply drill any two of these, of course, a top and a bottom. Yeah, some people just drill holes through and put, a long screw of some kind, and then you're able to just remove the top. You've got to make those holes kind of bigger than the screws. Remove the top, do your work, and put it back on and tighten it down. I don't know why, but I have a preference for this bracket, and I started making these a long time ago. But these pieces of wood I got over at, not that I'm promoting Home Depot or Lowe's, but I got them at one of those places. They were long pieces of wood. They were not expensive. And I said to him, would you please cut these 18 inches long? And they did. So then it was just up to me to get those holes drilled, find the right kind of screws and wing nuts, and there you go. You got a really great press. I've had many presses over the years. I have just this little tiny, I like to carry this around. I'll keep it in my car, but it doesn't do quite as well. Usually when I come home, I would move the flowers that I press or the materials into kind of my bigger press. But if you're wanting to, I've gone out and I've just filled this all away with ferns. Love the ferns. You have to press a lot of greens. It's really important to have greenery. So it's really fun to have something that's very light, very handy, and mobile. You can buy these online. Someone gave me this years and years ago. I think it was a trekker press in my trekking days.
what's that in between?
It's like this hardboard. Yeah. It's going to be, so it would be the same thing, same system that is used to press. So what I do, and I've got some things pressed that are already pressed here, but I use a sandwich because you're not just flattening the flowers and botanical materials, but you are drying them. And it's really important to get that moisture out of them as quickly as possible so that they don't deteriorate or mold. That almost never happens with a system like this because there's so much here. There's corrugated on each side of the sandwich. And inside of the sandwich, there's a piece of blotter paper. There's a piece of newsprint. When it turns out there's a bougainvillea, I didn't even know that was there. Another piece of newsprint, another piece of blotter paper, and then the final, the outside of the sandwich. By doing that, you've got the flowers protected inside on this very smooth, somewhat absorbent newsprint. On either side of the newsprint, you have a piece of blotter paper. In the old days, I used to go into a stationery store and buy big pieces of blotter paper and cut them all up and to the size I needed. But now you can get blotter paper most anywhere. Some people don't like to use Amazon, but it's a great resource for supplies like this. So it's a sandwich. And the flowers are going to go inside here, and you're going to try to get them in there as soon as you harvest them, because some flowers are pretty fragile. I'm sure you're aware of that. And so they might not do so well, or they might start to curl up. Ferns can do that too. So you want to get them safe inside the sandwich and get this sandwich in with your other sandwiches and get them in the press as soon as you're able to. I'm making you hungry again. The optimal thing to do is to try to find the specimens that are in the best condition. And so as you're going through whatever it is you're going to press, if I were going through my bougainvillea plant, which is very productive, I would choose the blooms that I thought would press the best. And sometimes you choose ones that you think are going to press well, and you open it up and it's kind of a disappointment. They're not what you would hope, or maybe they turned brown. But that's just part of doing business. It really is. When I press, I'm going to open this up to the middle of the sandwich. Get rid of the bougainvillea. And I always I try to always date the day I press, because you really need 2 weeks, I'd say, for most everything. Some stuff might take a little longer, but so you want to have a date on here that says, I'm going to press today. These are from the 12th of September, and here they are. And I would, if I was peeking through, maybe desperate to find something that I thought I had to have, that I thought I had pressed, I would know that, well, either that's ready or it's not. Once you have dated it, I use an old pair of scissors, and now I'm going to take a few of these. So I got some delphinium, because you'll see when you go to make your things that the delphiniums really press beautifully. You don't press the stalk, but you press each little bloom. So I would just, if I were going to press these, which I'm going to do, I would just cut off each little bloom, and I would try to put, and I'm not good at this, but I try to put the same species on one page rather than mix it, because you'll see when you go through the already dried flowers, then you want to get them categorized. Well, it's kind of hard if you've got half verbena and half something else on a single page, or whatever. You'll see that it's a little mixed up. But I would just lay these down, and I try to, these in particular, because, they have this little stemmy thing. By the way, these are toxic, so you don't want to handle verbena or delphinium and then eat right away. Or wash your hands. And as you all know, there's many toxic plants out there, so you really have to be careful. it'd be kind of, a friend of mine, I was pressing in a garden, that someone had invited me to press to, and a friend went with me and she's bringing me things. Oh, look at this. And I looked at one of them and it's very dark purple. I don't know if you're familiar with monkshood, but you're not even supposed to touch it. I said, oh, no, we can't press that one. Then you better go wash your hands right away. So you do have to kind of know your plants. I'm sure you all do. And, or you can look it up, and you can find out the information you need about it. So I would just put these down. I probably, want to even it out a little bit, and I probably want to do a whole page. So I'm just going to leave those there for the moment. And this is something most of us from the north are familiar with, Queen Anne's lace. Normally, and you'll see some that's already pressed when you get to pick through to make your card. Normally, I would press the whole head, but this was definitely a cultivated version, but it's still lovely. And what I would want from it would be each little, because even if I press the whole thing, I end up using little tiny pieces for little accents. So I would, I'm going to do that though, because that's too cumbersome to press. And I would just take each little piece. I always put things face down, because when you roll your paper out on it, you're going to want to be able to control. Control that handed, right? Left hand means she's an artist. Here. My daughter is. Let me see. We'll just do a couple. No, so this, you all know what this is. Hydrangea. And of course, you couldn't ever press this whole thing. But surprisingly, if you, I guess what I'll do here is just take a piece like that. Surprisingly, and I do this with a lot of flowers, verbena, and a lot of flowers, I just press little pieces of them. So in this case, I would really want to press each little bloom. So I'd want to get those right down there. These can be finicky. They might brown on you, which is another reason to try to do them when they're as fresh and new as possible. Not that you suddenly feel like you want to do them in when they look beautiful. Sometimes I go out to harvest to press and I think, I just love it. So why am I cutting them down and killing them essentially? But I'm not. I'm preserving that, and I can justify it that way. So I would just do that with a bunch of those. Even these little pieces, you could definitely just take each one and lay it on there the way you want it. You'll see when you pick through the flowers that things turn out differently, like the shapes are, I've got a section of delphinium. Well, there are all kinds of shapes and sizes and coloration. And so when you're picking things out that you want to use, you choose the one you want. Oh, I like that shape, or I like that color. So I would do that. I would definitely press some leather leaf. Of course, I wouldn't really press these on the same page, but I would take some leather. It's too big to do in its entirety, but some leather leaf. I press all kinds of ferns. I have a little fern farm that I started because there are less ferns down here, less variety than up north, and I was desperate for ferns. So I press all kinds of ferns. So I do that, and I might even, don't gasp, but I might even press some of these roses. And you'll see when you pick through the pressed flowers I brought that there are plenty of rose petals that I've pressed. And that's kind of hard. Usually I savor them several days, and before they start to really get droopy, then I'm going to take some of the inner leaves and I'm going to press them. Now these are kind of scooped They're a little scoop shape. Well, that's not gonna work very well. So what I do when I press them, if I can find my scissors, when I press them, I just give them a little snip to flatten that out so that it's gonna lay down better. These are pretty big and pretty hardy, so I think I should give it even a little bit of more of a snip. And you have to do these with some things. I've tried pressing orchids, but as many of you know, the inside of an orchid is often like this hard thing. And sometimes you have to take the petals away and just press some of the petals. I do that with hibiscus. I take and I press all the petals, and then I press the stamen separately and just use it. I think there's one or two in some of those cards over there. So it's just fun. You experiment, you see what you like, you see what works for you, and the sky's the limit. You can try anything. Leaves, great to press. I know tree leaves would work, but leaves of plants press beautifully. I do rose leaves on rose bushes to put with the roses I press, because my roses I grow at home, most of them I can press in their entirety. And you'll see some of them all pressed, or you'll see them in some of those products. But so once you've done this, once you've got, I'm just going to tuck that over there, got your sandwich filled, hopefully kind of a sheet per thing, a sandwich per thing. I'm just going to take this part, the newsprint and the blotter paper, and I'm going to roll it on. I'm going to press it down. There goes that bougainville. It does not want to give up. And there's something that you can put in your press. Now, if I was going to continue pressing today, I wouldn't put a complete sandwich on top of this sandwich. So you can make your corrugated go a little farther by just continuing the sandwiches that you build up. And so I'll get that in later. So yeah, and that's kind of a fast approach, but do you have any questions about this method of pressing?
So normally you wouldn't put them all together like you did in that
That's right.
individual.
Yes, I try, and you will notice that when you look over here, that sometimes it doesn't quite work that way, but I try to do them individually, each type.
And the roses, did you use the outside or the inside? I thought you said inside.
Inside of
The petals, did you pick them off the outside?
the
Rose. Rose, yeah. Rose.
Yeah, well, if I had these roses at home and have wanted to enjoy them for several days, I would, some of the outer leaves might not be doing so well by the time I would think, I better try to preserve those inner leaves and the petals, and they'll be smaller, but, they'll be just beautiful. So you'll see a lot of rose petals when you go through flowers. Let me think. So this is kind of funky, but it's just the way I go out and cut things. Hold this under my bougainvillea and snip, 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 and so then I go running in and I get them put in their sandwich page. These materials I used to years ago, and for up until I would say 4 years ago, I used to be like every cardboard box that would come in, I go after it with a razor knife thing, and I would cut and reuse them. And that's a great way to get your corrugated. Sometimes it's not in great condition, and you do want them to be as smooth as possible. So I do get now corrugated right from Amazon. None of the materials really, honestly, cost very much. And I also get, because it's kind of hard to find around here, honestly, is just pads of newsprint. Now, all these materials, you will use them over and over and over again. So once you get a supply, you're set. I'm reusing all the time my blotter papers and corrugated and newsprint, you'll see, because the preserved flowers are there, and I've taken away the blotter paper, and I've taken away most of the corrugated, and they're just sitting there in their newsprint. And if I use up a page, then that piece of newsprint just goes back in my pile to use next time. So you reuse this all the time. You can get, I've got a couple different kinds of blotter paper. You can get blotter papers for flower pressing, it says. There you go. This is another type. It's a little more expensive, although it's very nice. They're called couch sheets, and they're thicker, a little bit bigger. And so I allow myself to get some of those now and then. But as I said, once you're doing it, you don't really have to worry so much, because you just keep recycling the materials you use. And once you get into a press, and you empty it, then you can use all those materials over. So let's just see what's going on in here. I have not looked at this. So let me just do this. These are things I pressed a while back. Okay. So this is one of the next pages. But here's some odds and ends. These are verbena, either just pulled apart, little tiny pieces of them, or the whole head. Verbena are great for pressing. They keep their color really well. And the red ones especially are so nice to put a little dot of color here and there when you're making something. Otherwise in here are some other, I have this shrub that I can't recall the name of it embarrassingly at the moment, but it produces these as part of its, maybe someone will recognize it. It's got green leaves, but it also has these different color leaves, well, almost colorless leaves, and it also has these little tiny yellow stars, which, sorry, you can't really see here. And those are fun to use, you know, just as a dot of something somewhere. When you're, I'll show you, we'll just pull it apart. That's okay. Oh, okay, so need more verbena. Now this I pressed on June 16th. That's surprising. Let me show you something while we're here. So when you're ready to use your flowers and you're removing them from the newsprint that they're on, you basically want to peel the paper away. Now, sometimes it works if you want to just pull them off, but it might break. They're actually not all that fragile once they're pressed. They're far less fragile than you would think. But the best way to do it is to peel the paper back and get it to release that way. A little hard to do that without sitting down. And, you know, there you have a nice head of verbena. Beautiful. That's beautiful. And the same, here's a I do geranium blossoms. So sorry, it's kind of hard to see if I actually hold it. You'll see a lot of these in the already pressed flowers. And these are little individual verbena, because I will take them and pull them right off the head and do each little bloom and press them separately. And what? Here, I think I'm losing things. So that's just a little individual. Again, it's nice to have some little things to just kind of highlight here and there, a little dash of color. If I were going to put this in something, I would very carefully, because it's still got its little stem on it, very carefully I would peel that off, so that, because I wouldn't want the stem in my work, and it would be right there. Drop one. I probably have 1,000 or 2,000 verbenas, but every one is precious. Feels precious.
So those have been in there since June.
Yeah.
So, but 2 weeks is when you can usually use this.
2 weeks is adequate. Yep. In most cases, 2 weeks is adequate. So here's a whole page of ferns. These have their And when I have a really big fern, then of course I press it. Sometimes I press them whole, but for the most part, something this big, it would make sense to press each one. And you just, pull them off of the stem and just press them. Grains, important to press grains. That's, let's see, we won't do this much longer. That's more of those, but like there's a different kind, a different kind fern. Let's see here.
So then, Deborah, once we have these pressed flowers, can you now demonstrate what we do with them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, because we're running out of time.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. Well, so on and so forth, and you're welcome to look through this. I don't even know what's in there, but it's a lot of treasures, so I'll tell you that much. So, yes. So, okay, you have all your flowers. They're all pressed and they're organized, and you're able to say, oh, I want a piece of Queen Anne's lace, and you can open it up and you've got one. So it's really nice to have your flowers kind of categorized. I end up with a big pile of miscellaneous stuff after I do work because I pulled this out and I pulled that out, and then I don't maybe use it all. So, best practice though is to try to keep them organized. You can make a lot of things. So you can make frame things. Okay, go ahead.
I pressed some flowers not too long ago, and they were lovely when I took them out. I put them between two pieces of glass and then soldered the edges of the glass. And when I hung them up in a room, they eventually lost their color.
Right.
And I think it was because of the sun, maybe
Probably.
sunlight, but the sunlight wasn't coming in.
I can't speak to exactly why that happened, but I do think that when you put them between glass, that they just have more light exposure in general. They'll last a long time. I mean, these are going to last a long time. If anything's going to fade, it might be, some of the ferns. But usually, and I should have brought something old.
But do you have those on paper?
Yeah.
Does that help hold the color? Because when I put them between two pieces of glass, there was no paper or anything.
Right. And again, I just think it probably is the extra light exposure, but they will fade. They would fade over time. And the ones I saw at the Roosevelt compound were all faded, but they were, in great shape and they were very beautiful. So, I'm sorry for your disappointment, but there might be a way. Some people use a fixative. I haven't done that to try to preserve. So that's another thing we could talk about. So you can get all sorts of watercolor paper, little pads of it at Michael's or wherever you go. I've got all different sizes because sometimes I make things bigger than this. So, and if you want to frame something, take an old frame. You don't need to buy a frame. You may have a frame kicking around, or you might be in an antique store and think, oh, what a great frame. And you can use that. And it's just a matter of it's simply a matter of making your arrangement. I usually try to use some nice watercolor paper on here, on your page. Oftentimes what I do is I will make the arrangement without securing it, meaning gluing it, and I will then take a photograph of it, or I will try to move it to another piece and get the same design I wanted, because once you glue things down, then you've got a problem to solve if you're not happy with the effect. So it's just fun to play with that, for sure. Today you're going to make some cards.
What glue are you using, Deborah?
I'm going to show you that. I've evolved on that. Thank you. I've evolved on that as well. I used to use, regular stick glues. I have either I put it on the paper or I put it on, I have these little wooden things and I put it on, take a little dip of the glue and put it on the paper. Now I am using Mod Podge. And I brought a bunch of little things for you guys to use today. And this is nice because it's a little tiny dispenser nozzle. And you're able to really, you don't need a lot of glue. Even for those, you don't need a lot of glue. But you want to secure it so that it will stay where you wanted it to in the frame, or with the card, survive the laminating process. So we have that, that's the glue.
So do you cover the entire surface of the pedal with glue, or just,
No.
maybe just a set, just a piece?
Well,
Dot.
We'll help you with that when we're doing our cards. So today I've given you what I call the insert and cardstock, and a little sleeve to put your card in. And you can get that out when you make your cards, because we do need to move along if you're going to have time to make your cards and bookmark, or you can stay afterward. Just keep in mind that some of this insert will be hidden behind the border. So you want to kind of centralize your arrangement, whatever you decide to do. Sometimes I do just one rose with some rose leaves. Simple is terrific. Sometimes I do more complex little arrangements, but they're little arrangements, but they're fun to do. And so this is what you're going to do your arrangement on. And I'll help you through that. Yeah, it's not good. No, just all right. Using Strathmore cards since I began. But I used to, I didn't used to have the photo frame ones. So I would start by going through the whole box of cards and cutting out a little map. So kind of like, what else? It's all of them. Sort of. These I actually, you can get them at stationers, but I do get them, I get them at Amazon. So you get little cards for about $24 or something. So they're about 73 cents a piece. The good thing is, if you don't like one that you make, you can take the insert out and make a new insert. You can make the most of that. So, I know we need to push along. I'll just briefly say that sometimes I put, a rose petal behind an arrangement, or sometimes I, put the ferns behind. But I've gotten into putting little shapes of paper too behind. And again, all these papers are up here if you want to use any of them. But you might choose to put, something on your insert and then make your flower arrangement over it. Just an idea. It's kind of endless. The ideas are endless. So because we are pretty pressed for time, this is what I invite you to do. You were given that little package with a card.
You have one more package of a card.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. No problem. Who needs it?
Thank you.
So, and I gave each of you, and if you don't have one, just tell me, a sheet of water paper. I think you should rush this table with your sheet of water paper, and you should go through and choose some things to make your card with. Okay?
This water paper,
Yeah, and that's just to transport your flowers
go get flowers.
here. And I'll help you with that.
No, we just need one.
Yeah, just bring your piece of blotter paper, flowers. Don't worry about being picky, or, choose what you like. Choose extras, because if I don't mind, we'll just collect the ones you don't get. It's okay. Just pull some of it off in my card. Lots more verbena here.